Okay, shall we start the discussion? So coming to the first question, how discuss how diffusionism and evolutionism differ as a explanations of cultural change. So basically, they are trying to ask you the differences between the both the schools. Right. So in this case, what all things you have to focus. So first, basically give an introduction about classical evolutionist school and how diffusionist school. Okay, so try to explain. So just give a brief introduction. And then write the differences. So what all differences are the way they are explaining? Okay, so what all differences you have to notice? First is definition, how they are explaining the social change. So according to classical evolution, it is a process of social and cultural change. Social and cultural change in a definite direction, from simple to complex, homogeneity to heterogeneity. Okay, simple to complex, homogeneity to heterogeneity, definite to, sorry, indefinite to definite. So what do you understand by this? Most of the people might have read this. So can you tell me what do you understand by moving from homogeneity to heterogeneity, or moving from indefinite to definite? So what does indefinite mean altogether? Sobia, can you tell me what do you understand by moving from indefinite to definite? Yeah. So you need to understand one thing here. Indefinite means your role and status is not fixed. In the past, there is no role and status. Everybody used to do their own job. Okay, so there was no specific role and status. But today, what has happened, we have moved towards specific role and status. That is what indefinite to definite means. Okay, simple to complex is, we know that multiplicity of institutions coming in place and holding the control, and homogeneity to heterogeneity. Previously, we all used to be same, but now it's not the same. Okay, so that is the definition. So next, moving further, what is the definition part of diffusion? It says that, okay, how does it define? Okay, it says that it is a process of, it is a process where cultural elements, how the, see, they are telling how the social change is happening. So there it is evolving from, okay, simple to complex, homo to hetero, indefinite to definite. That is the, that is the change they have noticed. And here the change is moving from one place to another. That is, cultural elements, complexes, and aspects of culture pass from one group to another. So this is the definition part. Then you have to write about the nature. What is the nature? Cultural evolution is more complicated compared to diffusion. Okay, so what is the nature of the thought? It is complicated compared to classical evolution. Sorry, classical evolutionism is complicated since it tries to put the social change into different stages. Okay, and these different stages, on what basis you are going to arrange, we do not know. Okay, but whereas the diffusionism is simple in nature, it tries to observe the path of diffusion, the path of diffusion and elements of diffusion through, okay, so they try to identify the path of diffusion, elements of diffusion, and process of diffusion. How do they find it? Using criteria of quality, quality or form, quantity or number. So if you see, among the Austro-German school of diffusionism, what do they do? They'll say that if there are two cultures and if you notice similar thing in both the cases, then what you will do? First, you verify all other possibilities. Now, every possibility has said no reason for the similarity. So then you eliminate and then you say that, okay, if there is no other possibility, that means it is because of diffusionism. Okay, so it is because of diffusionism. This is the qualitative or based on form. Okay, because they are looking similar. Next, there are two cultures, and within these two cultures, there are similarities in different traits. Okay, so if more number, okay, more number of traits are similar, so in that case, they'll identify the diffusion. So first is with respect to definition, then with respect to nature, then with respect to process. Okay, so how is the process? Alteration, alterations or inventions. Alteration or invention. Okay, so how the cultural evolution happens? Okay, it happens through Either you make alterations to existing things or you invent new things. But here the process is just through borrowing of cultural elements. Okay. And next thing you need to observe here is that evolution may or may not aid diffusion, but whereas diffusion definitely aids evolution. Okay. And here the nature of evolution, the nature of evolution according to classical evolutionists is to change existing simpler existing simpler items and complex simpler items and complexes in a society to more complex order, to more complex order. And if you come to diffusion, diffusion adds more new items. Okay, diffusion adds more new items. Okay, basically you just need to remember few words. First is definition. Okay, so then you write the definition, how the social change they are explaining, then nature of the process. Okay, so whether it's a complicated or simple. Okay, then after the nature of the after the nature of the process, then you write about the process. Okay, so how the process is happening and how both interact with each other, whether they are helping with each other or whether they are going in a separate manner. Okay, so in evolution it can go separately also. Sometimes it can lead to diffusion as well, but it may or may not is the condition. Okay, it's up to it. But whereas diffusion, definitely when something new is coming to you, you'll make some changes and the evolution will happen. So definitely diffusion will aid to the evolution. Okay, then the nature of evolution you have to talk about. Right, so in the conclusion you have to write that, so where classical evolutionism try to show the change happening across various stages, diffusion across various stages within the culture, whereas diffusionism tried to explain the process of exchange and the change happening and the change happening between the cultures or change occurring, exchange and the change occurring due to interaction of cultures, interaction of different cultures. See, 90% of the times there is no chance of question from this area, but we should be prepared for anything. So I thought if a question is asked in this manner, despite people knowing more about the classical evolutionism and diffusionism, they won't be able to write the answer. Okay, so they won't be able to use the information that is there to put in a proper structure. So I thought I will take up this question, and rest questions I feel that they're very straightforward, and mm, you don't need more help. I'll be explaining the concept. So if you take the next question, what is the next question? Culture area and age area. Okay. So culture area and age area. First, you need to know in the introduction which school has given, that is American school. Using this culture area and age area, they try to explain the process of diffusion. Okay. So in this, they try to explain the process of diffusion. Right. So you give the names of the people who gave this. Okay. Clark Whistler and the L. Krober, along with the Clark Whistler, has tried to talk about this culture area and age area. So what is culture area? What is culture area? See, what American diffusionists have done is that they have divided the entire world into different cultural areas on the basis of, on which basis? On the basis of geographical similarity. So they have divided this, and after this, Clark Whistler, Clark Whistler emphasized emphasized the concept of cultural area, referring to the area, referring to the area in which similar cultural traits, similar culture traits or culture complexes are found. Similar cultural traits or cultural complexes are found. So in which area you notice the similar cultural traits or cultural complexes, that area is known as culture area. And within this culture area, suppose this is the area within the whole, okay, and there are similar traits, okay, similar traits and complexes. This is the culture area, and within this culture area there is a center known as culture core. Okay, center of this is the culture core. Okay, so in each culture area, this is the culture area one. Okay, in this culture area, there is a cultural center, and it is the core of the culture area from where all social, economic, political, religious activities are controlled and governed. Okay, so these are the views expressed by Clark Whistler. Okay, and he also says that the culture area has maximum cultural traits, and from here they are diffused. From here the cultural traits are diffused. Okay, and okay, and there is peripheral area. So this is the core area, and there is a area known as peripheral area. Peripheral area. And this peripheral area of the culture where the minimum where the minimum cultural traits are present, minimum cultural traits are found, and this peripheral area keeps borders with other cultural areas. Okay, all right. So again, he also gave the concept of age area. So what is age area? Did you understand what is cultural area? Please quickly let me know. There is no concept of culture core versus culture center. Both are same. So that center was called as culture core by the Whistler. Okay. So that's the thing. So if you're clear with that, Sobia, are you clear with what is culture area? Please let me know if you didn't understand anything. Now I'll move to the next thing, that is age area. So if you see, this is the culture core and this is the periphery. This is the peripheral area. Okay, core area, and this is the culture area. Within the culture area, you are taking a trait, and if this trait if this trait is widely spread, okay, if this trait is widely spread across, that means it is the oldest one. It is the oldest one. If it is not widely spread, then it is new one, right? So he said, from the cultural core or the culture center, from the cultural center, if larger is the distance, if larger is the distance of diffusion, if the larger is the distance of diffusion of the trade, then the area, then the age area is older one. If it is less, that means it have went recently only, right? That means the age area is the newest or the youngest. It is the youngest. So this is with respect to age area and culture area, and accordingly you conclude, right? So one more thing, yeah, not just this, you have to write the work that has been done by Clark Whistler. So he has done the study on 300 tribes from North America, and he based on food. Okay, so food and area. So one salmon fish, salmon fish among the North Pacific coast and plateau. Then wild seeds, this is salmon fish, and then wild seeds in California. Okay, intensive agriculture, intensive agriculture in southwest USA and Mexico, Peru. Caribou, that means deer, among the Eskimos of polar region, and bison or bull. Okay, bison among the Great Plains, maize, eastern part of North America. See, based on these cultural traits, he has divided the North America into several areas or ecozones. Okay, so in right, so he has drawn the food areas instead of telling the culture area. We can say he took a particular trait and he has drawn the food areas. What is the criticism to the criticism? First thing, he has taken only one trait. If you take more than one trait and if you draw the areas, there might be overlapping areas. How to deal with it? And you have shown this only at the micro level. But how can you show this at the macro level? That means how can you do it at a world level? At world level, it is not possible. How many traits to consider and how to do it? You did not explain about that. So these are all the limitations or criticism to the American School of Clark, American School of Diffusion or Clark Whistler, basically. Though he tried to give the practical approach, but still this is not possible at the ground level. Is it clear? See, I hope you all have my personal number. Just ping me on my personal number. I'll be sharing you the anthropological thought PDF, so which you can follow. Okay, so WhatsApp me. I'll be sharing you the PDF so that for any other topic, if you're facing any difficulty, you can use them. Right. So moving further, if I have to talk about culture Cree school. So what is the culture Cree school? Is anyone aware about it? So first of all, you need to know this has been given by German school. Okay, so German school of diffusionism, and what they have thought? They have thought that culture starts from a center and it spreads like a ripples of water. Okay, so culture crease. Crease means circle. Culture crease theory or culture circle theory. Okay, so culture circle concept proposed that a cluster of functionally related cultural traits specific to historical time and geographical area diffused out of a region in which they evolved. So it is a cluster of functionally related cultural traits. They are related over time and geographical area, and now they are diffused out of a region in which they evolved. Okay, so it is the cluster and they are related over historical time and area, but this has diffused out of a region in which they have evolved. Okay, so circle concept was inspired by Friedrich Ratzel and Fribnis. Okay, Friedrich Ratzel and Frobnis in his Vienna based in his Vienna based. Okay, so this was inspired by him and expanded by Frobnis, Leo Frobnis. Okay, in his based Vienna based culture crease or culture circle approach. Right. Who has studied using this? Grabner. Grabner, using this method, he tried to study Oceania. Oceania at first. Okay, first he has studied Oceania and then he has studied worldwide basis using this concept. Okay, so if you mention this, that would be sufficient for culture preschool. Okay, so what is the criticism is that here, while talking about this, these people heavily relied on the material evidence and they did not talk about the social institutions or a scheme is given. Okay, they didn't give any scheme. Okay, they just relied on the material evidence. And next, they are criticized for being mystic regarding the growth of culture. Okay, so they are also criticized for being mystic regarding the growth of culture. So they are not clear how the culture is taking, cultural growth is happening. Okay, so this is with respect to cultural key school. Right, coming to the last question. which is asking about historical particularism. So historical particularism, then you have to follow if this kind of question comes. Okay. So in this situation, you have to follow a pattern of answer. Okay. So these things have to be addressed, and most of you are aware about it, but still, anyways, first you have to write the introduction that should consist of, okay, who is dealing with it, when did it come, and then you tell historical background. Okay. So here it is Franz Boas. Okay, it's a school of anthropological thought associated with Franz Boas and his students, whose studies of culture emphasized whose studies of culture emphasized the integrated and distinctive way of life of a given people. Okay, so this emphasized. Then you'll write the historical background. Why did it come? It came as a reaction to the classical evolutionists. Okay, so particularism stood in opposition to cultural evolution, and historical sorry historical particularism stood in opposition to theories such as classical evolutionism, though it accepted diffusion. Okay, so he said that diffusion and evolution go hand in hand, and he did not accept the way they have explained it. Okay, so historical particularism claims that each society has its own unique history and development. Okay, and it must to be understood from their own historical process. See, every culture has its own history, and you have to understand that from you have to understand their culture from their own history. Okay, so you have to understand from their own history. Then afterwards you should write the meaning. What is the meaning and understanding historical particularism and the concept of diffusion as they go hand in hand. Okay, so the traits that are similar between the cultures may have diffused through interaction between various cultures. However, while these traits are similar, they will develop different and unique histories from their movement through various societies. Okay, what they are saying, the trait is going from here to here, but though diffusion is happening, this trait is not going to develop the way this trait is happening. This is going to develop according to the history which is unique to this particular culture. So that is what Franz Boas is trying to explain. He says that, okay, diffusion happens, but the development is according to the history of that particular culture. Okay, so and this trait development is shaped by this. So historical particularism is the belief. Okay, historical particularism is the belief that each culture each culture has its own history, its own distinct history, its own distinct history, right? That is not influenced by the universal principles. So universal principles means that classical evolutionists say that everywhere people think in a similar manner and it is going to happen in stage by stage. So this is what they have said, right? But that's not the case according to Franz Boas. He says that you have to observe according to that particular culture. Then you write the methodology. What methodology did Franz Boas use? He was dependent on the field work. He didn't use the imaginative approaches that or the secondary sources. Okay, secondary sources means somebody has written the book, and you'll take that book and you'll read and you'll try to give the hypothesis or the theory. But that is the secondary source, and you did not do any field work, and you will just think and you'll give. So that's why the classical evolutionists were called as conjecturalist. Conjecturalist means those who do not do any work on the ground, rather just imagine and try to give some conclusion. So those people are known as conjecturalists, and the theory of classical evolutionism is called as conjecturalism. Okay, the way of thinking. Okay, so if you try to give any notion by using this conjecturalist method, that is called conjecturalism. So he rejected conjecturalism and he opted for the field work, and he said that study that particular history of that particular culture, history of that culture. How do you study that particular culture history? You go collect the facts. Okay, so you can use your students, involve the female anthropologists, and collect the facts, as many facts as possible. Do not make any conclusion. Okay, so now he says that first you collect the facts, and as many facts as possible, arrange them systematically, arrange them systematically, and then you try to make a general law. Okay, before that, don't try to come up with any general law. So this method, okay, there are two methods, deductive method and inductive method. Okay, there are two methods. One is deductive method and other is inductive method. So in deductive method, what you do is that first you'll give hypothesis. Okay, you'll say that, suppose take my example that you might say that, sir, Shiva sir teaches anthropology well, and you'll try to prove it by showing so and so things. But other approach is that first you'll attend the classes, you look at everything, you look at the content, you look at the quality, and then you will come to a conclusion that okay, so and so person is good. So this is inductive method and this is deductive method. So previously the approach that was used was deductive method, but Franz was opted for the inductive method. So methodology here you should write that he used ethnology, he went, he has done the field work, okay, but along with that he has used the inductive method. Right. Then coming to the accomplishment, okay, what are the accomplishments? So by studying the particular history, he tried to talk about cultural relativism. Okay, because of this, he was able to put out in the book Race, Language, and Culture in 1940. He has talked about cultural relativism, and then he was also able to talk about the race is not hereditary. Okay, race is not hereditary in nature, rather, it is the creation of humans. Okay, so this is a cultural creation. Okay, in the society, there is no race that is superior or inferior, because race is influenced by the environment and every race is different. Okay, there is no comparison between them. So this was with respect to the accomplishments, and he has also led, he has also divided the field method. Okay, four field method, that is biological, cultural, archaeological, and linguistic. All right. So he integrated these four fields and try to look at the studies. So what is the criticism? Criticism is that he was not able to come up with any conclusion, because you said collect as much as data you can, but where is the limit? Where is the limit? So there is no limit to it. You did not tell how much to collect. What will you do with the data? See, Franz was himself at a point of time, he was confused that, okay, by collecting too much of data, you cannot come to any conclusion. Okay, so he has observed this, and he himself was frustrated with this way of approach. And some scientists also criticize, especially Marvin Harris. Marvin Harris criticizes Franz Boas by saying that if Einstein would have been there, he would have said that, okay, he would have said that he could not have come up with any development that is present today. Okay, so even Einstein says that there is no inductive approach possible as a science. Okay, so today science would not have been developed if we had taken inductive approach. So this was the criticism that has been done by Marvin Harris. He shows Einstein and tells that, see, Einstein himself has highlighted this. So Franz Boas has taken a wrong step in choosing this approach. He should have made some hypothesis first, and he should have tried to come up with a general law and then try to prove it. Rather, he took the other way around. Okay, so this is one thing, all right. And he did not specify how much data to collect and what to do with it. These are the limitations with respect to Franz Boas. Okay, and he even his field studies were subjected to critical analysis. So these are the criticisms, and in the conclusion, you can write, despite these efforts, the concept of cultural relativism helped in many ways fighting the concept of race, which is discriminatory and against the human rights. Okay, so to fight this, the concept of cultural relativism given by him has helped a lot, and historical particularism has provided altogether new approach to the studies, highlighting that every culture is different and unique its own in own sense. Okay, because they are influenced and shaped by their histories. Okay, and he is also known as father of American anthropology for the reason that he was able to develop the cultural anthropology there, and he also contributed the four fields. Okay, he has divided the anthropology into four field approach. Okay, four field approach and integrated them. So you can highlight the importance by telling the contributions. Okay, that you can give in the conclusion. Prudvi, mystic means something which you are not clear. Okay, so you are just trying to understand it, but you don't know. Okay, so that is mistake. And synchronic and diachronic studies now you don't need, because when we do functionalism there I'll be explaining. Because first try to know this clearly, then in the next topic we'll be knowing that, because functionalist go for the synchronic approach from the diachronic approach. So there I'll be explaining it. See, there is nothing much to tell, even if now also you can get to know. Diachronic means you're studying across the timeline, that is chronologically. Okay, that is diachronic approach. And if you are studying what is present now, synchronization, right? So you get sync in with the time. So if you're studying what is present currently, that is synchronic study. So diachronic means you're studying across history. But anyhow, I'll explain this in the context of functionalism and structural functionalism. Right? Is everything clear? Sobia, is it clear? Please ping me on WhatsApp. I'll be sharing the document. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you very much.